You've seen Blade Runner, the rain, the neon, the replicants, but did you know Harrison Ford and Ridley Scott argued over whether Deckard was even human? Or that the movie almost had a totally different name, about electric sheep? Oh, and that famous tears in rain scene. The actor made it up on the spot. Yep, this science fiction classic is packed with strange behind-the-scenes stories. Here are 20 weird facts about Blade Runner you probably never knew. Number 1. Is Deckard a replicant? Even the people who made the movie can't agree. Alright, let's talk about the big question that's kept Blade Runner fans talking for decades. Is Deckard a replicant? You'd think the people who made the movie would have a clear answer, but nope. Director Ridley Scott says yes, 100%. He even added that weird unicorn dream scene to hint that Deckard's memories were fake, just like the other replicants. For Scott, it's not even up for debate. But here's where it gets interesting. Harrison Ford, the guy playing Deckard, totally disagreed. He's always said he played him as a human, and he didn't even know about Scott's Deckard is a replicant idea while filming. When he finally found out, he was pretty annoyed. The two actually clashed on set over it, and neither one backed down. To this day, Ford and Scott still don't see eye to eye on this. And honestly, that disagreement kind of works. It adds to the mystery. Blade Runner was never about giving easy answers. It wants you to wonder, to question, and to keep asking, just like Deckard does. Number 2, the original title was almost way longer. Blade Runner wasn't always going to be called Blade Runner. In fact, the original title was straight from the book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Cool name for a novel, sure, but for a movie, not so much. The studio thought it was too long, too strange, and kind of confusing, so they went looking for something catchier. That's when they found a totally unrelated book called The Blade Runner by Alan E. Nourse. It had nothing to do with androids or futuristic cops. It was about smuggling medical supplies, but the name sounded cool. So they bought the rights to the title, scrapped everything else, and slapped it on their movie. The word Blade Runner isn't even used in the book Blade Runner is based on. It just goes to show. Sometimes a great title is all about the vibe. Number 3. That unicorn scene, it was a hidden clue. If you've ever watched Blade Runner and suddenly found yourself asking, wait, why is Deckard dreaming about a unicorn? You're not alone. That moment catches a lot of people off guard. 1 second, Deckard's quietly reflecting, and the next there's a slow, dreamlike image of a unicorn running through a forest. It feels random, almost like a piece from another movie. But here's the thing. It's actually a carefully placed clue. Director Ridley Scott included it for a reason, and it changes how you might see the entire story. Here's the idea. If Deckard is dreaming about a unicorn, and later, Gaff, the mysterious cop who leaves behind origami animals, just happens to make a unicorn and leave it where Deckard finds it, how would Gaff know? The only explanation? Deckard's dreams are artificial. Just like the replicants he's been hunting, his memories may have been implanted. That subtle moment is Scott's quiet way of asking, is Deckard even human? The catch. That unicorn scene wasn't in the original 1982 version. It only showed up later in the director's cut and final cut. And once it did, everything clicked. Number 4. Rutger Hauer wrote the most famous line in the movie. One of the most unforgettable moments in Blade Runner comes at the very end, the emotional tears in rain monologue. What many people don't know is that Rutger Hauer, who played the replicant Roy Batty, actually rewrote that speech himself. The original script had a much longer, overly technical monologue that didn't quite hit the emotional depth the character needed. The night before filming, Hauer took matters into his own hands. He trimmed the speech down, kept only a few key lines, and then added his own poetic flourish. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. But he didn't stop there. He paused after delivering that line and, completely unscripted, added the now famous words, "Time to die." Director Ridley Scott later praised the change, saying it was far more powerful than what had been written. That small, creative decision by Hauer turned the scene into one of the most iconic moments in science fiction film history, all crafted just hours before the cameras rolled.
Time to die.
Number 5. The dying dove was not part of the plan. Right after Roy Batty gives his emotional tears in rain speech, there's this quiet moment where he releases a white dove into the rainy night sky. It looks so perfect, like it was made to be in the movie. But here's the thing, that moment wasn't planned at all. Rutger Hauer actually brought the dove to set himself. He thought it would add something meaningful, like a symbol of Roy's soul finally being set free. And honestly, he was right. But there was a small problem. It was raining hard during filming, and the dove really didn't feel like flying. So when Hauer let it go, it just kind of sat there in his hand for a second. Not exactly the dramatic takeoff he probably imagined. Eventually, though, the bird took off, and it ended up looking beautiful on camera. That slow, uncertain lift into the sky made the moment feel even more real. It's wild to think that one of the most iconic shots in the whole movie came from pure improvisation and instinct. Number 6. Edward James Olmos invented his own language for Gaff. Gaff, the mysterious cop with the origami habit, speaks in a strange, almost unrecognizable blend of words throughout Blade Runner. That odd mix of languages? It wasn't part of the original script. Edward James Olmos, who played Gaff, came up with it himself. He invented something he called city speak, a futuristic mashup that combined English, Spanish, Japanese, Hungarian, German, and even a bit of French. Olmos had a clever idea behind it. He imagined that in a future as diverse and crowded as Los Angeles in 2019, people wouldn't stick to just one language. Cultures would collide, and speech would evolve into a mixed dialect that reflected that melting pot. Rather than giving Gaff a traditional accent or backstory, Olmos created a whole new way of speaking. He even wrote all of his lines out phonetically to make sure he could deliver them naturally. City speak only appears in a few scenes, but it makes a big impact. It's a small, brilliant detail that helps Blade Runner's world feel more real and shows just how much Olmos brought to the role.
Got the wrong guy, pal.
Lopa, negojma. Te vaya Blade. He say you Blade Runner.
Tell him I'm eating.
Number 7. Sean Young stayed in character, even when the cameras weren't rolling. Sean Young didn't just play Rachel in Blade Runner, she practically became her. To really sell the idea that Rachel was a replicant who thought she was human, Young got deep into character. Maybe a little too deep. On set, she didn't just act like Rachel when the cameras were rolling. She sometimes stayed in character between takes too. People on set noticed her holding completely still, blinking less, speaking in a flat, calm tone, like she was still trying to move and talk like a machine. It threw some crew members off, honestly. No one knew if she was just super method or just having fun with the role, but it definitely added to the mystery of her character. She also studied old Hollywood icons like Katharine Hepburn to give Rachel that cool, vintage vibe. The result? A performance that felt eerie, elegant, and just a little off. Exactly what a replicant hiding in plain sight should feel like.
Okay. Bad joke. I made a bad joke. You're not a replicant. Go home.
Number 8. There are 7 different versions of Blade Runner. Yep, you heard that right. There are 7 different cuts of Blade Runner. Most movies have a theatrical version and maybe a director's cut, but Blade Runner, it has the original work print, the US theatrical cut, the international version, the director's cut, the final cut, a San Diego sneak preview version, and even a TV edit. Why so many? Mainly because the studio and Ridley Scott couldn't agree on what the movie should be. The first version, shown to test audiences, confused people, so the studio made changes, like adding a voiceover and a happy ending. Over time, fans kept asking for a version closer to Scott's original vision. That led to the director's cut in 1992 and the final cut in 2007, which is the only version Scott had full control over. It's the one most fans now consider the real version. Number 9. Harrison Ford wasn't the first choice for Deckard. It's hard to picture anyone but Harrison Ford as Rick Deckard, but he wasn't the first pick, or the second, or even the third. Before Ford got the role, the studio looked at a bunch of other actors. Believe it or not, Ridley Scott first wanted Dustin Hoffman to play Deckard, but Hoffman had different ideas about the character and eventually walked away. After that, they considered Tommy Lee Jones, Gene Hackman, Robert Mitchum, and even Arnold Schwarzenegger. Can you imagine Blade Runner with Arnold chasing down replicants? Totally different vibe. Eventually, they landed on Harrison Ford, who was fresh off Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark. He brought a cool, quiet intensity to the role, and now it's one of his most iconic performances. Still, it's fun to imagine what might have been. Number 10. Ridley Scott almost didn't direct Blade Runner. It's hard to imagine Blade Runner without Ridley Scott behind the camera, but he almost didn't direct it. At the time, Scott had just finished Alien and he was actually working on a movie version of Dune. That project ended up falling apart, and Scott was still grieving the recent death of his brother. He wasn't even sure he wanted to take on something as heavy and complex as Blade Runner. But when he read the script, he saw the potential to create a rich, visual world like nothing else out there. He agreed to direct, bringing his detailed eye and dark tone to every frame. Without Scott, we probably wouldn't have the neon-soaked rainy future that made Blade Runner so iconic. It was a close call, but thankfully he said yes. Number 11. The Voight-Kampff machine inspired a real-life political joke.
You're watching television. Suddenly you realize there's a wasp crawling on your arm.
I'd kill it.
The Voight-Kampff machine, that creepy device used to test if someone's a replicant, actually made its way into real life, sort of. Back in the early 2000s, during a San Francisco mayoral race, a group of pranksters made a fake campaign poster suggesting all candidates should be tested with the Voight-Kampff machine. It was a total joke, of course, but it caught people's attention. The machine, with its blinking lights and weird eye scanner, had become such a big part of pop culture that people instantly got the reference. In the movie, it tests emotional responses, but in real life, it became a symbol for questioning whether someone was real or fake. It's funny how a science fiction gadget, designed for a dystopian future, ended up being used as a punchline in real-world politics. Number 12. Blade Runner's spinners, from cool to scrap. The flying cars in Blade Runner, yeah, those super cool spinners, weren't just made to look futuristic. The team actually put a lot of thought into making them feel believable, like something we might really see one day. Sid Mead, the movie's concept artist, imagined a whole backstory for how they worked. According to him, spinners ran on three things: jet engines, regular internal combustion, like a normal car, and anti-gravity tech. That combo helped explain how they could cruise on the ground and take off into the sky. To sell the illusion even more, the crew built them with real interiors and tons of blinking lights. After filming Wrapped, a couple of the actual spinner cars ended up at Disneyland, used in the Star Tours attraction. But over the years, they got moved around, repainted, and eventually most were trashed or forgotten. One even ended up in a junkyard. Luckily, a few fans and collectors managed to save and restore some of them, keeping this iconic piece of science fiction history alive. Number 13. Blade Runner Beats, the bootleg era. Believe it or not, the iconic Blade Runner soundtrack didn't come out right away. You'd think a movie that influential would have had its music in stores on day one, but nope. Even though Vangelis's moody futuristic score became a massive part of the film's vibe, fans had to wait over 12 years to get an official release. By then, people were so desperate they started making their own versions. Seriously, fans were ripping audio straight from VHS tapes or stitching together tracks from other Vangelis albums just to recreate the sound. And here's the wild part. A lot of fans still say those old bootlegs sound better than the official release. They had bits of dialogue, ambient noise, and this gritty emotional feel that the clean version kind of missed. When the real album finally dropped in 1994, and later the 3-disc version in 2007, it was a big deal. But for diehard fans, those grainy, homemade mixes still hit the hardest. Number 14. Blade Runner influenced video games, anime, and more. Blade Runner didn't just change movies. It shaped the look and feel of science fiction across all kinds of media. If you've played games like Deus Ex or Cyberpunk 2077, or watched anime like Ghost in the Shell, you've seen its influence. The dark cityscapes, neon lights, rainy streets, that whole cyberpunk vibe, it all started with Blade Runner. Even Japanese creators, like Akira's Katsuhiro Otomo, have said the movie was a huge inspiration. It also influenced tabletop games like Shadowrun, and you can spot its fingerprints in films like The Matrix. The gritty future world Ridley Scott created became a blueprint for what the future should look like in pop culture. So even if someone hasn't seen the movie, they've probably seen something that was inspired by it. That's how big its impact really is. Number 15. The Cybertruck was inspired by Blade Runner. It might sound like a stretch, but it's totally true. Blade Runner played a big role in inspiring the design of Tesla's Cybertruck. When Elon Musk first revealed the truck in 2019, he didn't just show off a futuristic vehicle. He leaned into the science fiction vibe completely. In fact, he tweeted that the design was directly influenced by the look and feel of Blade Runner. And get this, the Cybertruck's official unveiling happened in November 2019, the exact month and year that the original Blade Runner takes place. Total coincidence? Nope. That was 100% on purpose. From the angular, armored design to the cold stainless steel finish, the Cybertruck looks like it was dropped straight out of Ridley Scott's dystopian Los Angeles. Musk even said he wanted it to look like something from a movie, not just futuristic, but straight up cinematic. Love it or hate it, the truck's design sparked conversation, and its roots in Blade Runner are impossible to miss. Just another way the 1982 classic continues to shape how we imagine the future. Blade Runner isn't just a movie. It's a world full of mysteries, bold ideas, and some seriously weird behind-the-scenes stories. Whether you're a diehard fan or just getting into it, these facts show how much depth and creativity went into every frame. If you learned something new or just love science fiction as much as we do, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Thanks for watching.